Hi, how you doing? Today we're going to talk about what to do with your fingers to make sure you last longer. Let's just pretend that I never said that, eh? But a little more seriously, we are actually going to talk about fingers. We're going to look at what sort of things damage them and what we can do to help minimise that damage. Before I dive in, I want to give you a little bit of background. Many years ago, I was a nurse working in the third busiest A&E in the country.
It's the best we can do until Dr. Tinkle sees him tomorrow.
That's ER to my American friends. I spent a lot of time seeing and dealing with hand injuries. After A&E, I moved on to trauma and orthopaedics, where I ran the plaster room team. I ended up teaching anatomy and physiology for the British Orthopaedic Association, as well as being an instructor and examiner on the casting techniques certificate course for people learning all about treating traumatic injuries. So I have a little background knowledge on this subject. I'm not really going to go into detail about the structure of the finger. It's not that helpful. But what we do need to know is that damage to the joints of the finger tends to be caused by either direct trauma or overuse. Direct trauma tends to be caused by taking a specific movement of the joint past its limit, or by combining two movements together. Let me show you. The fingers move freely in a single plane. They flex and they extend at both joints. If you hold them straight, then you can also get a reasonable amount of rotation through the fingers without causing any discomfort or injury. However, if you flex them and then rotate them, it feels a lot more unpleasant, which is a good marker that something bad is happening. That combination of two separate movements puts a lot more pressure through the joint and can cause acute, short-term damage to the cartilage, or in extremes, to the ligaments that hold the joints together. We can reduce this effect with some sort of immobilization. You can buy a variety of tapes or even specially designed finger braces, but it's worth bearing in mind that immobilizing the joints of your fingers, even if only a little, can make them more prone to other injuries. When you're rolling, your taped fingers are going to be less mobile and can get tangled in clothes or caught underneath someone. So you need to bear in mind that, much like everything else, there's a trade-off to be made. I'm going to show you how I tape my fingers. There are a lot of different types of tape on the market. The one we're looking for, the one that I use, is known as zinc oxide tape. That refers to the adhesive that's used to help make it sticky. The fabric of the tape is cotton. Because of that, it tears easily, and that's quite important, as you're about to see. We're going to use half-inch tape, exactly the same stuff that you get on your belt when you level up. Starting with a strip about 2 inches long, we're going to tear it in half lengthways. Doesn't have to be perfect. So we now have two lengths of tape, approximately 2 inches long and 1/4 of an inch wide. I should apologise to the Europeans here for using imperial measurements, but I'm sure you're more than capable of doing the maths yourself. We're going to lay these strips one at a time across the back of the joint of a straight finger to form an X. It's important that you put them over the actual knuckle, not over the bone. Once they're on, we're going to gently squeeze the tape for 10 seconds or so. This warms the adhesive and makes it more likely to stay on. Then we're going to tape around the top and the bottom of the X with a section of half-inch tape and hold it again to make it stick. These strips provide both an element of immobilization but also help hold the cross in place. It's entirely up to you how many joints you do and how many fingers you tape. I tend to be guided by which joints are currently sore, which probably isn't the smartest move, but that's your choice to make. This is a really simple system that provides a decent amount of support with less immobilization than a lot of other ways. I found it to be really helpful and massively reduce the amount of finger pain I have in my day-to-day life. But it's not the only thing I do. I'm going to go off on a tangent now.
What a surprise!
And I hope you trust me enough to come with me, because it will become relevant. I promise. On the 21st of October 1966, a literal mountain of coal mine spoil collapsed in a small Welsh village by the name of Aberfan. The avalanche of mining debris destroyed everything in its path, including a school where the children were just starting their day.
When the coal tip at Aberfan near Merthyr Tydfil slid forward, engulfing an infant school and a row of houses.
28 adults and 116 children were killed. Why is this relevant, I hear you ask? Well, as we all learned at school, liquids behave in a predictable way. Only that's not always true. There are a few types of fluids that are classed as non-Newtonian, meaning that the way they behave is not what you'd expect. I'm sure you're all familiar with oobleck, a mixture of starch and water that behaves like a solid when subjected to stress. The slow-mo guys and How Ridiculous are two of many channels that have demonstrated this very clearly. What happened in Aberfan was that the spoil pile became waterlogged over time, and because of that, it became the very opposite type of non-Newtonian fluid. As the spoil began to slide, the energy it transferred into the rest of the debris caused that to become more fluid, setting up a chain reaction where over 140,000 cubic yards of slurry poured down the hill, smashing into the school where it came to rest. Once it came to a halt, it immediately re-solidified. The reason I'm telling you this is that the synovial fluid inside your finger joints, just like the avalanche at Aberfan, is a non-Newtonian thixotropic liquid. When you're not moving the joints of your fingers, or any other synovial joint for that matter, the synovial fluid remains thick and stiff. It doesn't absorb into the cartilage easily. But as you move your joints, the fluid becomes thinner and begins to absorb into the cartilage. This causes the cartilage to thicken and expand and become more spongy, more resistant to wear and tear from normal movements, and more resistant to impact. I'm sure you can see why this might be a beneficial thing. So this is one of the few times where I would always strongly recommend a specific form of exercise as part of your warm-up. I know, I'm a purple belt and I shouldn't be doing warm-ups now, but this at least I always try and do. Before I tape my fingers, I spend a minute or two simply flexing and extending them a little. I start slowly and gradually speed it up. This not only helps loosen the joints up a little, but also allows that protective fluid to be absorbed into the cartilage of my fingers and help protect them. And then I tape them to help prevent any direct injury. Like I said, it's not a perfect system, and most definitely doesn't guarantee you an injury-free life on the mats. But I've certainly found it very helpful, and so it might be worth giving it a try if you train in the gi and you don't already have a system in place. So, over to you at this point. Do you actually have any routines that you go through to help protect your fingers? Do you specifically warm them up? Do you have a way of strapping that you've found to be helpful? Please stick something in the comments and let me know. I try really hard to answer as many comments as possible, and I know for a fact that there are probably going to be other ways of doing this that might help as much, if not more. So I'd really love to hear them. Anyway, if you aren't subscribed, I'd love it if you were to consider subscribing. In reality, it makes very little difference to your experience of YouTube. The algorithm will show you what it thinks you want to see regardless of your subscription status, but it does have a big positive effect on my channel, both regarding ad revenue and also regarding finding sponsors. And to those of you still here at the end of the video, fight team!